All right, so we're back for part 2, and if you listen to part 1, it's literally 5 minutes later in our time. And if you did listen to part 1, you are probably as blown away as I am, and we've just had a couple of minutes of silence and awkwardness in the room. As if you haven't heard it, the part 1 of this, I really encourage you to listen to it. And I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm just I get a very privileged front row seat to when you guys talk openly like you did. Like that felt like, I don't know how you guys feel. Like, how do you guys feel now after? I don't want to.
Great.
Extremely good.
Really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I feel good too.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is that we're sort of looking back on the year and we're picking out our highlights. Hugh, you picked out one for part 1. And in this part 2, Josh, you and I will look into the past.
Yeah.
Pick out a thing. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, why not? So the piece of audio that I've chosen from the season is from Martin Heppell's ep, the Vulnerability House that he did.
Oh, Rack.
Yeah, which was as for anyone who's met him or seen him perform, it's a real experience, and the whole episode was incredible. But there was just one piece that every time should I give context of what the episode was about? Yeah, so in that episode, he gave us a really pretty confronting, in fact, very confronting account of an attempted or not attempted sexual abuse committed on him when he was a kid in a park by a stranger. And it was the way he talked about it for a number of different reasons that you'd have to listen to the ep to sort of get more of the story. But for a number of reasons and circumstances, he told his parents after it had happened, and because he told his parents, that allowed him to they knew about it, they were able to talk it through, and he was able to get the help and support that he needed when he needed it as a child. Later in the episode, Martin talks about his passion for working with kids and for explaining to kids and getting kids to share the hard stuff that's going on in their life because of that experience that he had when he shared the hardest thing he'd experienced. I want to play a bit of audio from him later on in the episode when he's talking about that exact thing. Yep. So, should I press the button that does that?
Yes.
The memory
thing.
Memory sound effect on our Rodecaster Pro.
And that gift is why I think that episode of my life has given me strength. I think it's been, like, in a weird way, man. It has been a gift, because it's allowed me to be passionate about teaching kids that they are okay, that they are normal, that if they're going through some hard times, that we're with you, we feel your pain, but you know what? We're going to support you. There's ways out of this. It's not going to be easy. It can be done though. Yeah. But if you don't talk about that, then we can't help you. But you know what? When you talk, I'll tell you what, man, we've got your back. Like, we have got your back. And you know that when you talk, man, you are walking side by side with me.
I always get really emotional whenever I hear that last bit. And I think one of the reasons I get quite emotional, there's 2 parts to it. But one is that, firstly, the idea that there's some poor child out there that is having to take the weight of the world on their shoulders because they think that's how the world is, because they don't know that they can share this stuff with an adult, and they must feel so alone in that journey. And it just breaks my heart to think that exists. And then on top of that, that we continue to tell ourselves this kind of story, I think, throughout the rest of our lives, where we deal with shame and deal with bad things that have happened in our life, and for some stupid reason we think we have to deal with it by ourselves, and we don't consider that there's people in our lives that would happily, if we told them, they'd happily help shoulder that burden, and you wouldn't be alone in that struggle anymore, and you'd have people to help you out. And I guess that from that, it kind of makes me feel like if you're willing to, for an adult, it's about willing to be vulnerable and reflect on things that have happened in your life and share with people that you trust. And then you'll realise that you're not as alone as you feel, and that there are people who would give anything to try and help you out and to get through that kind of stuff.
I felt that that gives me chills, that part. I just love it so much. I love Rack so much.
Yeah.
Like I often feel like sometimes I just pinch myself like I can't believe this guy's part of my life. Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I get to talk to him and spend time with him. So that role that you're talking about there, like adults being there for kids, he plays that role for so many people and he never talks about it. But sometimes I'll ask him what he's been up to. Like we've got a meeting, you come in today, I'm just catching up with this person. Who's that person? Oh, it's just a kid I used to teach 15 years ago. We just stay in touch and I'm just there for him. But he never talks about it. But he's just got so many of these. He's that person to so many people.
Wow.
And he never says no. Like, I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, I think it was a soccer player who did an interview on ABC Breakfast and he just walked off mid-interview. He had a panic
I
attack.
do remember that with Georgia Tunney doing the interview. I remember I was watching it live actually.
Yeah, he got up and he walked
Yeah.
off. He walked off the screen and the story was he had a panic attack. And
Wow.
the next morning I was in the office. So the next morning or maybe 2 mornings I was in the office and I saw Martin, what are you up to? He said, I'm just catching up with someone. And then he went they were at a cafe. I walked past a bit later and Rack was at a cafe with that guy. And he was just, I don't know how he got onto Rack. I don't know what the connection was, but he managed to reach out to him and there they were just talking about it. Rack never told me. He never said, oh, you know that guy from ABC? It just didn't tell me. I just saw it. I just saw that. And he's that person to
That's
so
just
many
the
people.
best.
And when you hear him talk, you like if you've got him on your side, you do feel like you can do anything. Like
I kind
if
of
he's
feel
got your
like
back.
I kind of feel like I've met him literally twice, like the times on the episode and one more time in the Resilience Project office. And even just having met him so briefly, I feel like if I was ever in trouble, I feel like I could call on Rack.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100% you could.
definitely.
Like he does have that effect. Like, well, he said to me, "I've got your back." He said in that thing,
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
clip.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an amazing quality. I would love to be that person for someone, you know, like it would be an amazing thing to be that person he's obviously that person for many people, but to imagine being that person for someone.
I think we all can be. I don't think we can all.
probably
We
what
can't
parent-
all be Rack.
It's probably what
That's-
parenting is, I guess.
Yeah, but you can be that person for someone for sure. We've all got it in us, I think.
Yeah.
But I
don't
reckon
think
there's a
we've all
lot of
got
people
Rack in
out there who, because it's what their experience was of childhood and their relationship with their parents, who probably aren't providing that totally for their kids. Just not because they're bad people, because it wasn't modelled to them and
Yeah.
it feels a bit uncomfortable to say to your kids. I mean, I've said it way too many times to Benji already. I think he thinks I'm a bit weird, but I always say, he came home from kinder one day a little bit upset, something had happened, and Ira said to him probably 30 times that night, you can always come to me. I'm always, if you're ever sad, you're lonely, you come to me and we'll talk about it and we're going to chat about it and I'll give you a big cuddle, I'll tell you I love you and you're going to be okay. And
I'm Hugh Van fucking Carlenberg.
I know Rack. But I think we got to put aside not us, we were very lucky with mum and dad, but I think for a lot of people who didn't have that modelled as you didn't have it modelled as a child with your parents, it doesn't matter. You can break that that chain and be there for your kids.
Yeah, I think I was trying to be pretty careful with my words early on and say the circumstances, numerous circumstances, created the situation in which he happened to tell his parents about what happened. Because I think when I was listening to that, I think for any astute listeners who have read your book, it's pretty obvious that the person I'm talking about when I say that the idea of that child is Georgia. Yeah.
Your sister.
Yeah, our sister being alone for so many years and not being able to work that out.
That was a lot. Yeah. It was 20 years?
Yeah,
More than 20
maybe
years.
more than 20 years of feeling alone.
Yep.
So, yeah. And the reason why I chose those words like that is that I'm definitely not blaming anyone in our circle or circumstances for the fact that Georgia didn't tell anyone. Yeah. Sorry.
Josh needs you haven't slept in days.
Sorry, it's hard to,
No, but
I couldn't sleep last
you
night,
could have
yeah.
slept for 12 hours and
of course.
I can't imagine not being emotional about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I had I didn't have a good night's sleep either last night, but Yeah.
Anyway, do you want a sound effect to transition to break them
I
up?
don't know if Road does that sound effect.
Transition.
Yeah.
No, but it's I don't want to wash over that one. That's
No.
That's a really, really valid point that no one could have helped and been that person for Georgia because no one knew she was 3. She couldn't.
No. Yeah.
She couldn't. God, think about, Benji's nearly 5. You couldn't expect him to go, right, who do I go to for support here? You just tell yourself a story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. I understood why that meant a lot to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy that you said that as well. So yeah. Well, Rack's an amazing man, and I have no doubt he has helped. I mean, I cannot even begin to think how many people he's spoken to in the last 6 years working with the Resilience Project, and he tells that story always in appropriate ways with the audience and sensitive ways. I can't even begin to imagine how many people he has inspired to reach out and for support.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even begin to, and it's
and how many parents would not readdress, but would be doing whatever they can to create an environment where things are shared. Yeah.
He's a phenomenal man. I'm so happy you chose. I'm so happy for many reasons. I'm happy you chose that part, but just to celebrate Rack, the person he is really special.
Sure.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have him in our lives.
And that episode had such a big, we got such amazing feedback from that episode. Like people really, I mean, clearly you can't listen to Rack and not be completely consumed by his Rackness. He's an amazing, amazing man. Another amazing man, I've got something I'd like to play. And back in March, so back like start of this year, we, for the first time, introduced the Academy of Imperfection. It was the very first Academy of Imperfection with a young man called Benjamin Crowe.
Him. Yeah.
Up and comer.
Yeah.
Worked at a running company called Nikkei. and he we thought we'd give him a leg up and give him a shot on our podcast, and he was rapt to go.
You got to
along.
look out for the little guys.
Yeah, you got to help him. Got to give him a little leg up when you can. And so Ben Crowe, obviously, probably our most listened to episode we've ever done, for good reason. I mean, we've had a lot. I mean, every episode should be the most listened to. We've had incredible episodes, but
I still go back and listen to it myself. I just from time to time.
Yeah, I hadn't listened to it for a long time, and going back through it, trying to find a good moment, because that episode was just so impactful. I mean, he has been so impactful on my life, obviously. So it felt right to sort of choose something from the episode. And going back through it, I just was like, this, and not because of us necessarily, but because of him, I was like, this is an unbelievable episode. Like, if you haven't heard that episode with Ben Crowe on our show, I really encourage you to go and listen to it. And if you've already listened to it once, you'll no doubt pick up on something else that you missed the first time, because there is so much. Anyway, I want to play one bit from it, which feels kind of like it resonates with me at the moment. In some way, I'll explain after, but I'll play it now.
Do you want the button?
Oh, yeah, play the button.
Try and find that self-worth. So we're not loved unconditionally. So we believe once we do something or achieve something externally, then we'll feel enough. But it never works, because you can't find self-worth externally. You can only find it internally, in the human being side of things. And I'm hoping at the backside of this pandemic that the human race gets back to that, to focus on the human being versus the human doing. Because if I asked you three right now, this is an academy and a workshop, what kind of human do you want to be this year? You'd probably say, I want to be kind, I want to be courageous, I want to be caring, I want to be confident, right? The good thing about that is you can control that 100%, right? You don't need any other conditions for you to do that. You just decide, I want to be kind, I want to be caring, and so forth. And therefore, that can become your expectation, right? Because you can control that 100%. But if it was predicated on having to do something or achieve something in terms of your professional world, there are so many things you can't control with that determining your self-worth. And if that became your expectation, focusing on something you can't control but wanting to control it is the definition of anxiety or stress or pressure or worry. So for me, it's getting back to finding self-worth internally. And that's why there's only two questions that anyone on the planet has to answer, right, to really simplify it. Who am I and what do I want? And you've got to answer it in that order, because you can't work out what you want until you work out who you are.
So, I mean, it's just such powerful stuff from Ben. And look, we said Mojo Crowe is his app and his whole thing. You go and have a look at his stuff. It's just that plus infinity. The reason why it resonated with me when I was listening back is at the moment when I'm sort of thinking about next year, my sort of like natural instinct, I guess, often, because I started in like professionally, I started in a commercial world. Like I started at like Channel 10 and then, we were at Channel 9 for a long time, and that was all really good. Just to talk very honestly, what I'm sort of like grappling with at the moment, I think, with this podcast is, and not that I expected it to go bad, but it's going well. Like, a lot of people are listening. And when we started this, I didn't know what it was going to be. I was just like, this will be, I'd love to work. At the start, it was like, this will be fun to do a little podcast with Hugh, this new guy I've met, and like, oh yeah, Josh as well. Like Josh, this is a fun little side thing, and it's important stuff. And I never expected it to be anything. I never expect anything that I do to be anything that enormous, but this was not something that I ever thought about as like as a job. I always just sort of thought of it as like an opportunity to put something good out there, and ride your coattails, Hugh. Essentially, because I believed in it. I believe what you do, and I believe in all the stuff you talk about, and I was like, if I can be a part of that, then that's great. And I think so. What I'm grappling with now at the moment in going into next year is like continuing this podcast on, but not getting tempted by. There's no better way to say it than the thought of like money. It's a really, I don't know. It feels dirty to say it, because I've always had this really weird relationship, or this weird relationship with money and creativity. I've always thought that they had to be separate. Or you say money, but you could also say like success or validation or whatever it might be. And I think like the reason that I did this is the reason that I need to. I'm trying to kind of like stay focused on the why, like why am I doing this? And in hearing about like Ben Crowe say, when he says, think about what sort of person you want to be this year. I just thought, we're about to go into a new year, so think about the sort of person you want to be. And that idea of a human being versus a human doing, just because of all the work I've done in the past and thinking about like ratings and whatever it might be, I naturally think, how do we grow this in a way that's going to make it more successful? And I have to kind of check myself to go like, it doesn't matter. Like I don't actually, obviously I want more people. I believe so much in this idea of spreading the message of we're all imperfect. Like I feel like it's very important at the moment for what I know. I mean, what the fuck do I know? But like, for what I know and what I've learned, I just think that is just like a really important thing for so many reasons. That's what got me excited about the podcast in the first place. And that is what I want to continue being excited about going forward. So I want to focus on the why I want to do this, and what's the pure reason why I'm doing this. And it makes me think about, I did 2 years of drive radio on Nova, like 10 years ago. And I loved it. And I ultimately, at the end of it, they didn't renew my contract. And publicly I said I chose to leave, but I didn't. I absolutely didn't.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, it happens a fair bit, but because what often happens each year in radio is like new shows get formed, and then you don't get a contract because some of your team's gone to a different show because Nova's gone, or the radio station's gone like, no, actually we want to put this person with this person. And so they just didn't have, well, who knows what the reason was, but they didn't renew my contract. And I was like, I took that really hard, really badly, but luckily I was able to say, I had a really good excuse as to why I quote unquote chose to leave, was because I went off to, then we made Hamish and Andy's gap year. We went to New York and did that. So the story worked, I could say, but the truth is that I didn't choose that. The Nova chose that. I was devastated One because I felt there was like a sense of rejection, but equally, to be honest, it was because like, oh, I'm not going to get all that money again. Because for those who don't know, in commercial radio, you get paid what is technically called silly money. It's ridiculous. And I was only there for a couple of years, and it feels kind of gross to say this out loud, but this is the only reason I bring it up is because it wasn't until like maybe like a year after that I was like, that wasn't actually the right thing for me. If it were up to me, I would have stayed there and I enjoyed doing the show enough. I loved the people I did the show with, and that was all fine. But that job wasn't right for me, and I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. And this is not to criticize people who are doing things for money. Like there's nothing wrong with making money. Nothing. No, I don't want to come across like that. But I think what I realized at the time was that that was a lucky bounce for me in hindsight. But I did at that time get sucked into this thing of like, just whether it was the validation of like a radio station saying, we want you to do this, we think you're special. Because when that stopped happening, I kind of felt like, oh, maybe I'm not special. But because I was attributing my self-worth to the thing I was doing, not to the person I was. And then when that was taken away from me, I was like, oh, well, now I'm just now I'm just a producer on, I'm not like this, I'm not on billboards anymore. So
what would have happened in hindsight, knowing what you know about vulnerability now? How do you think it would have gone down if your statement was, I haven't had my contract renewed, I'm shattered, and it really hurts, and now I've lost my job? How do you reckon that would have gone down?
If I had have said that?
Yeah. Because you hear about it all the time, but people saying, like you hear, if someone's dropped from a football team or a cricket team, they retire, or they've decided to call time.
Yeah.
But actually it's because they don't want to admit, do you know what?
Yeah. I'm
no longer good enough. Everyone's given the opportunity to leave on their terms, but everyone knows it's a real pride thing.
Yeah, it's an ego thing and a pride thing, and I just don't think I had the tools or knowledge to be able to stand by the fact that to be able to say publicly, because I think I was a lot younger. It was 10 years ago, so I was still trying to prove myself to whoever, whatever that means. Trying to prove myself to people who I wanted them to think. And Rove had just finished, so it was sort of like this feeling of like, I need to be doing something.
Or maybe this idea that I don't know, but maybe like Rove's done. Oh, this is done. Is it all coming to an end? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe the run's done.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Maybe
the panic of
I've been discovered. As like the fraud that I am. That was, maybe that was it. And the only reason I bring it up is now, since doing this podcast and the last couple of years and doing the work that I've been doing, it's maybe one of the first times where I feel like I'm not. I've had the opportunity to come from a place of why that I feel that feels right for me. And I can stand by it. And this podcast, because we started it, we didn't start this podcast as like a money-making venture, and it still isn't a money-making venture. No. Like it's still not like, we're certainly not like, we have a few ads in the thing, obviously, but...
We've sold 300 tote bags.
We've sold some tote bags.
Which we were meant to talk about, but we forgot. That's all right.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
They're coming. But I think the reason I'm bringing it up is because I wanted to say out loud, and almost as like a way of like, just...
Making yourself accountable.
Making myself accountable. I love this podcast so much. I love doing it so much, and I love you two so much that I don't want to fall into that same trap. And I grapple with it because it's my natural, I don't know, it's just where I've come from, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just want to assure the people who give their time to this like it's a real privilege that people listen to this podcast, and we do obviously really appreciate it. And I just never want to take it for granted, and I'll work hard for this never to be like because it can cloud your decisions and
spoil the whole thing.
And spoil what this is all about. Yeah. It's a weird thing to say, but the reason I'm saying is because I just wanted to just say out loud how much I care about it, and I don't want to fuck it up, essentially, by letting things like money or ratings status or whatever get in the way of what to me and to us is like a really special thing.
Beautifully said.
Really well said.
Wow.
And I feel the same way.
I mean, just so you know, like, I'd love you to say you love us both. I lost count amount of times we've said to each other, just pinch yourself that we're doing a podcast with Ryan Shelton.
Yeah.
Like, we say it a lot.
Yeah.
To each other, a lot.
But why did he leave Nova? He had such a good thing. No, thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Oh, it's amazing. I think it when I was like, I always think it. I just cannot believe. Like, I have, since started working with you, I walk so much taller with everything that I do.
Same.
Like,
Likewise.
even
Me too.
Yeah.
Since this podcast has been, I think.
Was it yesterday? I did a bit of press stuff for the book, and someone said, I can't remember who it was, but someone said he does a podcast with Ryan Shelton, and I felt like going, fuck yeah, I do. I was like, yeah, that's me. I do that. Yeah. I was just so proud. Like, just so unbelievably proud to work with you.
Well, that helps considering someone at the podcast awards last night said, loved you in the Chaser, man. I was like, cheers. Well, thank you all for a year that has been, it's been our biggest year to date, year number 3. Yeah. So we did so many more episodes, and next year we've got one more episode this year, obviously.
But before we wind up the year, just I think
too late.
The next time you two go away together and have 3 or 4 hours sleep, we need to just chuck mics in front of all of us, because I think it's a good format for us.
It works, doesn't it? Yeah. Sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
Thank you both for talking about what you guys spoke about. I feel very lucky. I think everyone probably feels pretty lucky to hear all that. Like that, they're more often than not private.
Yeah, it felt private. I wasn't really thinking about how many people would hear it.
Yeah.
No, I think that'll be pretty helpful for people.
And a huge thanks to all the listeners, because I love,
and the messages, and
my gosh,
they're incredible.
Yeah,
really.
and I feel very bad because I can't get back to everyone I want to. When we get when people stop you and say, people always say sorry when they say, I'm so sorry to do this. I want to let you know that. You don't have to say sorry. Like, it's so nice to hear the impact it has. So thank you for all your kind words. And if we haven't got back to you personally, I'm extremely sorry. Next year, we're hoping to get help from people to make all that stuff. We can get back to people and interact a little bit more. So,
tote bags. Yeah, sorry if it's taken a bit long.
Sorry, it's taken a bit long.
Huge thanks to Ashley, who works at Resilience Project, who just jumped in and did an incredible job, and Hugo Bienvenu from Melbourne University Cricket Club, a wonderful man. Terrific calves, and a wonderful cover drive, who's helping us out.
I also just want to say, I feel like now, if we ever do things that are making money, I feel like you're all going to send me emails saying like, no, mate, you're not allowed to make money. I don't want to shame anyone for trying to do things to make money. Nothing wrong with it. I don't feel, and if anything, the only reason that we do want to do that is so we can do this more. It is, that is honestly.
Well, people would have noticed that we're doing ads and we're doing things a bit more commercial, because we want to put more time into this. So we need to have some kind of money to do it. So yeah.
And speaking of doing it more, we've got one more this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then lots more to come next year, hopefully bigger and better.
Well, till next episode, again, thank you all. We've just had the best year with you guys, so appreciate it. Thanks for listening.
Love you guys. Thanks very much.
Love you.
Josh?
Love you.
Good. Cheers.